Remember, I did videos a while back, and I actually did a video. I think it was titled something along the lines of "Expect to see characters nobody asked for in the Marvel Cinematic Universe" as it became more and more big, because um, we saw that there was a shift in what the approach was. What was the agenda? What were they trying to accomplish with these movies? And they moved from just trying to do decent adaptations of characters that you were familiar with to wherever they're going now. And now Disney and Marvel, they're all in on like social justice and all that. And because some of the characters that they're going to want to pull from fits those bills, they're going to pull from guys that are skipping the line, despite them with Disney now having control over all of the characters. Say what you will about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but early on, they were taking characters that were literally part of the event, like their Avengers, for example, for the most part, were all OG Avengers. Thor, Hulk, Iron Man. These are all OG Avengers. I mean, unfortunately, we got Ant-Man after the fact, and then we didn't get the Ant-Man that was Ant-Man and fucking Janet that were actually Ant-Man and Wasp that were actually, the Ant-Man. You got Lang and all of that shit, though. What's his name was a part of it. They were all part of the OG. That was the OG Avengers, right? That was the OG Avengers. So they started where they should have started, right? And introducing people that were the core essence of what Marvel Comics' big team was. And Kevin Feige here confirms that, and this is reading about it in the comment, this came out about a week ago, that comic book popularity is not a factor in movie and TV adaptations. No shit. And it's during the interview, Feige referenced the X-Men and Blade films when he stated that sort of proved early on that it wasn't about how famous the character was. He's talking about X-Men and Blade, which I don't know how you can say X-Men weren't popular, but Blade, I will give you that. But you had nothing to fucking do with that. But how great their potential was in becoming a cool movie or series of movie. According to Men's Health writer Evan blah blah blah, Feige also explained the reason why Shang-Chi did not show up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe despite being on the list of for a long time. There was a limited space to fit characters needed during the lead up to the Avengers. Okay. And he still somehow dropped the end game of it all. Once we finish what we call the Infinity Saga, we rolled up our sleeve and said, okay, what's next? What are we going to kick off? The next sort of evolution of the Marvel Cinematic Universe post our first big saga. And that's why Shang-Chi was at the very top of the list. And because Shang-Chi is a fairly obscure character, the studio can rewrite and modernize. Oh, fuck. That's bad news, fellas. That's bad news. I didn't know he said that. I remember scanning through this. I didn't know he said that. That's bad news. That means Shang-Chi's dead on arrival. When you hear those terms, right there, studio can rewrite and modernize his story. That means right there, this is dead on arrival. This is dead on arrival. And I will say this. I am glad that they're finally starting to admit it more and be more upfront with the fact that they don't give a shit about the source material. They don't care. It's like all they want to do is grab from a pool of names of characters and just utilize them. And they'll be very, very loose adaptations. Right? So you saw that with, for example, with the Eternals, which basically all but like two are of their original selves. Pretty much all of them are tokenized. Like all of them. Wow, that's interesting right there. Yep, that tells me all I need to know. And stored in ways that will be far less noticeable and updating more widely known stories of those of Captain America, Spider-Man, or Incredible Hulk, which to me is like, imagine being that guy, which, yeah, Shang-Chi isn't the most noticeable character that exists in the Marvel lineup, but the fact that you feel like you have to rewrite and modernize these characters, which just usually means fucking do some shit so you can kind of shoehorn them in your universe. No matter if it attaches and makes sense for this character at all, they get to do that the least known the character is. So that's basically what he's saying. It's a more nice way to say, well, y'all have never heard of these characters, so we can do what we want. And instead of y'all constantly giving us shit when it comes to the noticeable characters that you guys already are familiar with, which they will run into the ground as well. Well, that's interesting. That's speaking with Variety at the end of April, Feige addressed the race and gender swaps in the upcoming film and revealed that diversity in the film is the reason it was placed at the top of Marvel's priority list. So when he says that, here's what he says. Feige clearly stated, well, the notion of switching up the gender, sexualities, and ethnicities of the characters from the comics was baked in initially. That was part of what Nate Moore was really advocating for the movie Eternals to the top of the list for us to start working on. Okay, so I'm not even going to read any further more because I'm right. I know a lot of you guys that watch my channel, the guys that hate watch my channel, the people that hate me so much and say that, oh, he talks about the same thing. He hates himself and all this sort of stuff. And you have to concede that I'm right. You can be mad at me all you want. I know you watch my videos and you get pissed off at the idea that I call it for what it is. But what Kevin Feige is admitting to you right now, I had already said years ago, that tokenization is a concerted effort. Like it's a positive claim, essentially. And Kevin Feige, with what I just read, admitted that. I told y'all how Hollywood works. There is no such thing as the best actor or the best person for the job got the job when it comes to the tokenized versions of the characters that we see. When we see the race swapped versions of the characters that we see. That's not how Hollywood works. And anybody that's even mildly connected to Hollywood or mildly knowledgeable on Hollywood, you know that that's not how it works. They are very direct in who it is that they want to cast for these roles. So if you see a tokenized version of a character that exists, whether it be like a character that they grabbed that was tokenized in the comics, or what we saw with like the Valkyries of the world and the Heimdalls of the world, which are white characters that are based on Norse mythology, it makes absolutely no sense for them to be black. Those are efforts that they go out of their way to do, and they're ramping it up, as you see that he just flat out admitted that was at the top of the list when it came to what they were doing with the Eternals. So you have to concede that I was right and you were wrong on this. All of that stuff was what you would say to folks like myself. You would tell us that because you wanted us to shut up. When we talk about the tokenization and how lazy it was and how, they just do it as a kind of carrot to dangle in front of you to try to appeal to you big group of blue-haired weirdos. That's what it was that they were doing, and I knew that. And it works because you guys foam at the mouth in the event that you see black versions, for example, of characters that you're not even familiar with. A lot of these Eternals characters, for example, they're going to do nothing but Google them and find them on like some fandom site, and then they'll become experts on them overnight. But when they are tokenized, when characters are tokenized, be it in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or when it comes to the DC, those are efforts that are direct. Those are positive, meaning not like literally as in a good thing. I'm saying they go out of their way to do them. They put their foot forward to make sure that they tokenize them. This isn't some open casting where they were like, oh, well, the best person who can embody these characters. Yeah, that's what we want. But that's obviously, and that should have been obvious when you saw who the fuck Selma Hayek was playing. She didn't get that job because she was the best person to embody the character that she's playing. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.